welcome back. Today I'm going to be going through 10 different tips I have to help you improve your digital handwriting. So the first tip I have is to use a matte screen protector. I think it actually makes a huge difference because when you're writing, there's a little bit more friction on the glass surface and it makes you kind of feel like you're writing on paper. I bought mine from Amazon and I'll link it down below if you're interested in purchasing one as well. My next tip is to use a Apple Pencil grip. I also bought this one from Amazon and it's just in a sleeve form. There are a couple different ones. If you prefer to use a grip, there are lots of options for those as well. I just feel like using the pencil grip gives me a little bit more control over my pencil when I'm writing, and it also prevents my hand from cramping or getting tired. So, definitely recommend. So tip number 3 doesn't actually have to do with handwriting, but it's with the paper color that you're using. So I recommend using a darker colored paper and using a lighter colored pen. I think it just provides a little bit more contrast and makes your handwriting a little bit neater and clearer to the eye when you're looking at it. Tip number 4 is to use grid paper. So GoodNotes gives you a bunch of different options as to whether you want to use dotted paper, wide ruled, grid paper. My personal favorite is to use grid paper just because it gives your handwriting a little bit more structure and control. For example, when you're writing letters, it prevents you from writing on a tilt, or if your handwriting is typically a little bit more slanted, it can help you make sure that you're writing upright. You can also use the grid paper to write your notes out first, and then once you're done, change that to blank paper or line paper. That will definitely help your handwriting look a little bit tighter and neater, and your overall notes will just look much cleaner. So tip number 5 is to use the enlargement box when you're writing. So for the longest time when I first got GoodNotes, I had no idea how you're supposed to use this function. I finally figured it out and it definitely was a game changer. So how you use this is you see the blue box on my screen. Basically the enlargement box just pulls out a bigger version on the bottom half of your screen. As you write towards the right side, this blue box will pop up, and what you're supposed to do is just continue writing on the blue box. So this automatically just shifts your handwriting to like kind of the next section, so you can have just a continuous writing stream instead of having to stop and scroll the page to the right every time you're writing. So when I first started using GoodNotes, I did not understand how to use this box, but I think with a little bit of practice, it really does make a difference, and it especially is helpful when I have to write long kind of sentences or got definitions in my notes for particular classes. So tip number 6 is to use the ballpoint pen. There are two other types of pens in GoodNotes in particular. There is the fountain pen and the brush pen, but personally, I really dislike both of those pens, just because I find the pressure consistency to not be very standardized. So when I press kind of down a little bit harder, it just makes a huge, like, wide line, and I don't like that. So I prefer using the ballpoint pen, which has a very consistent pressure and the same width, no matter how hard you press down on the page. Tip number 7 is to use a medium-sized pen width. When I first started using GoodNotes, I always use a really thick pen because that's just what I prefer using when I'm writing on paper as well. But what I found was after testing out a couple of the medium to thinner pen sizes, like 0.3 to 0.4, it actually makes my notes a lot neater because I can see all the individual letters super clearly, and you can also write smaller and in tighter chunks. Tip number 8 kind of goes along with the previous tip as well, but it's to basically write in chunks of color. I find that when I write in different chunks of color, it makes my notes look a lot more organized than if I were to use kind of like orange for the first line and then writing my bullet points in white. Obviously, this is just a personal preference, and it also can depend on kind of what class you're taking the notes for. certain classes you really need to have like the word in one color and the definition in another. So it just depends. Tip number 9 is to write on your iPad vertically. This is another point of personal preference. I just find that when I'm writing on my iPad horizontally, it just is not as comfortable because my hand will constantly kind of slip off the bottom of the page. Um, so I just prefer to write vertically where I can just clearly and comfortably fit my hand on the page. Tip number 10 is to practice. So obviously nothing really comes without time or without practice. So this was one of the biggest factors in helping me to improve my handwriting, just practicing whatever I had time or wanted to take a break from studying. So if you guys are interested, I actually made a handwriting template which I am using here. I will be linking it in the description below as well as on my Instagram, and it's totally free to download and use. And that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found these tips to be helpful. If you plan on trying any of them out, be sure to leave me a comment down below. I would love to hear about your experiences. Otherwise, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time.